So today we're going to be continuing this painting and continuing this video.
Number is closer to 2,000, but still that puts it at less than 1/10 of the normal galaxy compaction that occurs throughout space. It raises the question as to why such a wide area of space is completely unpopulated. Some even take this theory to the extent and say that it is because of alien races that colonize and destroy galaxies as they come across from them, and we are simply seeing the aftermath of that. Yellow Cuban balloons is in reference to 7 yellow balloons that were found in a box off the coast of Florida in the 1970s. Given the address and the date on the box and the condition of the box itself, it was estimated that these had been floating in the ocean for roughly 8 weeks. The address on this box said that they were from the USSR to Cuba. When opening the box, they discovered 7 identical yellow balloons that were all inflated with what seemed to be normal air lying in the bottom of the box. After doing research on them, there was absolutely nothing weird about the box itself. There was no wrong condition to the gas inside of the box, there was nothing special about the box itself, but for some reason, just being shipped in a crate to Cuba for seemingly no reason. It's still one of those old Cold War mysteries that have never been solved and probably never will. Driver killed JFK is specifically in mention to William Greer, and while initial reports that came out immediately after John F. Kennedy's murder believed him to be the shooter as he turns back to Kennedy in the Zapruder film before the shock, and going into the idea that the CIA murdered Kennedy, things start to add up. For example, why after the first shot was fired did he slow down instead of hitting the gas, driving, turning around, doing anything, but he brought the car down to a 7-mile-an-hour speed? Also, keep in mind, after the first shot went out, him and the guy in the front seat seemed to duck in the picture before he turns around. If William Greer himself did not murder the president, the theory says that he was his driving, and she blames John's death on the actions of William Greer in not reacting fast enough, or not wanting to react fast enough. Fracking deaths refers to the fact that around fracking instances, there seems to be an uncharacteristically large amount of deaths from consequences of fracking. For example, it's estimated through reports that in Appalachia alone, roughly 1,200 to 4,600 people have been killed by side effects of fracking, i.e. air pollution, water pollution, and things such as. Given the places that these deaths occur, it is believed that the government knows that fracking causes these deaths and are either purposefully doing it in areas they want to exterminate, or at least allowing it to happen to quell the local populace. Esoteric Hitlerism is exactly what it says. It is combining ideas of Hitler from World War II with esotericism, and says that the Third Reich was propagating several sort of universal spiritual ideas in their methodology, and that in the more extreme versions of this, Hitler himself is a form of deity. All the research you do with this leads back to Agartha and Central Earth, and the idea that Hitler essentially raised himself to godhood. Red rooms are the name given to several dark web pages in which people are either killed or tortured for the enjoyment of others online. A lot of this, as you read into it, gets into human trafficking, and while we know for a fact red rooms exist, what makes it even scarier is that all of these people had to come from somewhere, more than likely abduction cases that happen around the US and the rest of the world every year. Plant intelligence is in reference to the theory that plants have a higher intelligence than initially thought of by people. What I mean by this is that we understand that plants react to certain stimuli in certain ways, such as trees will grow in the direction of sunlight, or certain mosses will react to being touched, and things such as. It goes into a further level in saying that plants have a version of consciousness that we just don't understand, and the idea that nature is alive in more literal a sense than we normally mean it. Now come to talk to you about Last Thursdayism, because I promised if this topic was ever covered in the iceberg, I would let them, is my girlfriend and Last Thursdayism expert, Kayla.
That thought that, and so, like, you know, if you're a kid running around in the woods.
Last Thursdayism, also known as
building
the
forts by, like,
Omphalos hypothesis, I don't know how to say that, it's Omphalos, is an idea based around the book of Genesis and creationism that states that when God made the earth, he would have obviously had to make Adam and Eve fully grown with hair, a navel, skin, toenails, and that the grass would have been months old grass at least, and the earth would have been fully formed in a way that made it look 1,000,000 years old. The whole idea of it stems from Philip Henry Goss, who wrote a book with the same name, Amophilus. The natural progression of the idea and where the conspiracy theory comes in is that God or the creator, who whatever you believe in, could have done everything as soon as last Thursday, hence last Thursdayism. Which means that we could have been created just as early as last Thursday. Every memory, every thought, everything we ever thought we felt would have been implanted into our brains as early as last Thursday. It's a very interesting theory. It's my favorite one ever because to me it feels like, yeah, that totally could be possible. So,
thank you, Kayla. Acosmism is more of an abstract idea, and it essentially says that nothing in reality is real except for God. So what that means in a practical sense is that none of your experiences, none of what you know is reality. Instead, there is just a God or hierarchical being that is implanting these ideas into us. So essentially, everything's in a simulation given to us by a deity. The Bouvet Island lifeboat is in reference to Bouvet Island, which is known to be the most uninhabited or uninhabitable island in the world. It is located north off the coast of Antarctica and is essentially a giant glacial rock that is formed that has absolutely no greenery or no sense of sustainability. Ever go research the island that was not just setting there but pulled onto shore. However, around it they could not find any footprints, any evidence of life, nothing. But something got that lifeboat to shore, then pulled it on. There were never any bodies found, anything else discovered, and it simply remains a mystery of how that boat got there. A lot of the theories that have to do with it reference back to the idea of Agartha and that German soldiers from World War II who were moving that direction, one of them may have got stranded there and later picked up, and that goes in line with the entire idea that the Nazis found Agartha in Antarctica and then tried to move their troops there once the war was over. Abiogenic oil is the thought that oil, as we know it, is not actually a fossil fuels given from dinosaurs or other prehistoric creatures, and is instead come from an entirely non-biotic process. Essentially, it would work that carbon monoxide and hydrogen rised up to the surface, combined with zirconium, and created a petrohydroxyl. What that is as fossil fuels. Secret societies today is vague, but you get the idea. Just the idea that the Freemasons, Illuminati, and stuff like that are all these conspiracy networks that still exist and operate today outside of the public eye. Real Mizium is kind of hard to figure out on because I can't find a reference to any Mizium with real in the beginning of it, but Mizium itself is in reference to an event that happened on 4chan a few years back. Essentially, a new user appeared on the site called Mizium that said that they were an alien from a different planet who was simply stopping by, connected to the internet, and wanted to know if people had any questions. After answering questions in a sort of vague manner, people started requesting that they take pictures of their house or of their geographic location. Mizium then went around to these areas and started snapping pictures of people's houses from the sky or different areas of the earth and things such as, and it even got to the point that someone asked them to go take a picture of the moon, to which they took a few and sent them back, and through reverse Google image search, no one could find any records of these photos online. Furthermore, someone asked Mizium to come to their house. The person then went going. The guy filming starts freaking out, comes back to 4chan, said to go, so yeah. Prison planets can have two possible definitions. One of them is the idea that the Kessler effect, or Kessler syndrome, which is something that we've seen happen on Earth and which off of each other because they have done the same thing, and that humans the evidence for kind of atmosphere. This also would explain why such old world cults and religions had ideas of flying. We were